Spaceman Matt. Today we're going to look at Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, starting out with a muck time, which was a strange episode, especially for shows in the 60s. It starts out with Spock not feeling very well and out of sorts and angry, and turns out that Vulcans have to mate every 7 years. If they don't mate, they die. And so they go through a whole thing where they have to take them to Vulcan. So I think it's kind of weird being assigned to a starship, which is on a 5-year mission, and then all of a sudden you have to, out of the blue, you have to mate, and then you have to go back to your home planet. I think it's kind of convenient. Fortunately, they were able to accommodate him. But when he gets to the when he meets his betrothed or his wife, I think already she's considered his wife, which we didn't know about before. T'Pring has chosen another person that she would rather be with. So there's a whole thing where she has to choose a champion to fight Spock, so this other guy can sleep with her, and she chooses Captain Kirk. So it was a strategy where he wouldn't, I guess, he wouldn't kill Kirk. Kill Kirk, he'd get in trouble with Starfleet, and that would be that. And if Kirk killed him, well, then their problem solved. So I guess, and I agree that was. I think that's how it went anyway. So they go through all that trouble, and of course, it looks like he kills Kirk, but McCoy actually figured out a way to drug Kirk, so it looked like he died. But when they take him back to the Enterprise, he's fine. So, and of course, he went through all that trouble and didn't have to mate all of a sudden. So I think this is why nerds identify with Spock, because you get the opportunity to get laid every 7 years if you're lucky. That comes up maybe once every 7 years, and then if you go through all that trouble, you still don't get laid. Like your friends, like you're in college and your friends invite you to the fraternity party, and then they say, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna hook you up," and of course nobody wants to hook up with you. So I think a lot of nerdy guys identify with Spock for that reason, and he's kind of like the outsider in the ship too, because he's only like half Vulcan. He's the only half Vulcan crew member. And so now in the Strange New Worlds prequel series, Spock is played by Ethan Peck. And there's a third episode season of the original series called Cloud Miners, where they explain that Spock, he has a conversation with him and says, "Oh, with the right motivations, I guess they could, so the Vulcans could sleep around a bit." And so Ethan Peck's a good-looking guy, and he's sleeping with, and it's the actress plays T'Pring's very pretty, and he's also having a fling with Nurse Chapel in the first 2 seasons. So that's what's played by Jess Bush, who's very pretty. And then in the season, he's with Noonien Singh there, one of the commanding officers. They seem to be starting a relationship. So he's quite the player, Spock, in this, and not the same character as we saw in the original series. So I think that's why. So it kind of like ruins it for us nerdy guys. And then, I always, so Spock, even though he's kind of a nerd and outside, he's very useful part of the crew. He's very smart and he's helpful, and he's able to get them out a lot of, his Vulcan nerve pinching, he's able to get them out a lot of sticky situations. But that's why I kind of prefer the Doctor from Doctor Who, always manages to save the day, even though he's kind of a bit of a bumbler. So episode 2 is Who Mourns for Adonis, which is another godlike being. It turns out that the Greek pantheon of gods was actually aliens, and they find that Adonis or Apollo is living on this world. And they have, I guess, the pretty woman in the photo here is one of their crew members that's an expert on Greek mythology, and so the godlike Adonis becomes or Apollo, the same guy, but the Greek name was the Roman name. They becomes smitten with her, and then they have a tough time with him. And there was a iconic scene where he initially stops the Enterprise with his big hands holding onto the Enterprise in space, and it's like that's his godlike powers. So they do feel, unlike Trelane and Squire of Gothos, they do find that Apollo has a power source and technology that gives him his powers, and by targeting it, they're able to defeat him or at least contain him enough. So, but I think if I remember correctly, she stays the crew member stays with him. I think, even though he doesn't have all his powers. This is followed by the third episode, The Changeling, which is a notable episode. So, so going back at much time, I think it's passable. It's not. It's a funny premise, but I think overall it's kind of boring. A lot of it's fight scenes between Kirk and Spock and whatnot. So it's kind of boring. Who Mourns for Adonis is a bit of a classic, and similar to Squire Gothos, but unique enough to make it interesting. The Changeling features Nomad, which is it's a satellite from Earth that combines with some type of extraterrestrial machine, and it thinks that Kirk is the creator, because the satellite from Earth, I guess, must have computers or somewhat like artificially intelligent, and it recognizes Kirk as the creator, and then so that's what it thinks that he is, and then he causes all kinds of mischief on the ship. He doesn't know, because it's his mission. Like the Earth satellite's mission was to explore worlds like the Enterprise, but the alien satellite was for disinfection or something like that, and so they got kind of mixed up. So now it wants to go to different planets and exterminate everybody. I think that's my understanding. That's my remembrance of the plot. Anyway, and it's kind of there's a scene that is kind of it's kind of sexist. The Nomad erases her brain, and she has to be re-educated because women's brains, they're all full of conflicting impulses and thoughts, and they're too confusing. So he erases her brain, which is kind of, again, a little bit of misogynistic. So Star Trek, even being in the 60s, Star Trek could be a little misogynistic here and there. So I think but it's an iconic episode. They use this episode, and then episode 6, the Doomsday Machine over here is episode 6 for they combine these two stories for the Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and that's what frustrated me about Star Trek: The Motion Picture is that V'ger is a lot like Nomad, and in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, it's pretty much the plots are lifted, and they don't kind of recognize the similarities. Supposedly they lived this event too, so I thought that was kind of bad. Mirror Mirror is another iconic episode. This is Spock. This is alternate universe. This is one of the earliest stories for TV that features alternate universe, as far as I know. So, transporter accident. Switches are some of the Enterprise crew with the alternate universe versions of themselves. So, I have Spock with a beard, and you can't see it here. I'll put it up. I'll put a picture of it. So, it's funny. It's a very notable. So, there's a band called Spock's Beard, which I assume comes from this episode. So it's a music band, and so the crew has to. So our regular Enterprise crew has to survive in this very hostile mirror universe, and the other crew they don't focus so much on the evil crew in our universe, but this is kind of like difficult. I think they have to imprison them, but then Kirk has to survive in the hostile universe, and it's a difficult situation there. So this is a classic, and it's probably a must see. I do like some things like the Apple. This is again like similar to Return of the Archons in that it's a society controlled by a computer. Again, different enough to make it interesting, and everybody's kind of scantily clad there, and so enough stuff going on there to keep it interesting. So I do like this episode too. And then followed by the Doomsday Machine, which is another I think regarded as another classic. And I saw James Doohan once at a convention that was his favorite episode. Scotty got a lot to do in this episode. So James Doohan was actually played Scotty, and he said this was his most memorable episode. So he liked this one. I think it's pretty good. It's a little bit like Moby Dick, where there's this planet destroying. It looks like a cornucopia that comes in and just comes in and eats up planets and spaceships and anything that gets in its way. So it's on a trajectory that'll take it to a popular planet or Earth or something like that. I can't remember exactly what. But in the end they thwart it, and there's like this Captain Decker, which I think there's a Matt Decker in the Star Trek motion picture that's a tribute to him, if I remember correctly. And so he just tries to destroy the Doomsday Machine. He does like a kamikaze move, if I remember correctly. And that's followed by Catspaw, which I think for some fans I like. I think it's a pretty okay episode. It was like I think it's broadcast on Halloween, so it's they're kind of like these two, these are two again beings with like magical like powers, and they have to figure out basically how to deal with them. And they trap the Enterprise they have like an effigy in like this crystal, but it actually traps the real Enterprise in a force field. So I like this one. The ending's kind of what the aliens really look like. It's kind of surprising, and so I think it's a fun episode. That's followed by the better of the two Harry Mudd episodes. The iMudd is probably one of my top favorites, probably after Cydia. On the Edge of Forever, iMudd's probably the one right after it, if I had to rank them. And this one is Mudd finds these androids, and I guess he sends one to hijack the Enterprise because he wants to. They kind of have him trapped there, and he wants to get out using the Enterprise. Wants to trick them, so the Enterprise crew gets stuck there, and he can get away. But then, if I remember correctly, the plot, but then the androids just trap them. We don't want to trap them all there, and they're kind of dangerous. So have to figure out how to contain them, and they use logic. They will use logical statements to confuse them, and they kind of short circuit. So it was fun. It was fun. It's very funny. It has a funny ending, and he was supposed to come back from it for another episode, but the actor there couldn't make it. So I'll tell you what episode that is coming up. Then it's followed by Metamorphosis, which is another classic one where and he's Zephyr Cochrane, who supposedly was a test pilot for Warp Drive. He helped discover the original Warp Drive and was test piloting another ship when he disappeared. And apparently he's landed on this planet that was hundreds of years ago, and he's still alive. And the reason he's still alive, he's kind of he has this entity that's like an energy gas. It's like an energy and gas cloud, and it keeps him alive. And on board the ship with them is they have a person they're supposed to get to treatment, but she's dying. So they're stuck on this planet. So they're stuck on this planet temporarily because they take a shuttlecraft down. So she winds up having to stay there because she's going to die. She combines with the gas entity, and then she forms a relationship with Zephyr Cochrane. So they stay on the planet because they can't really have her leave without her dying. So I think this is an interesting one, and I think it's definitely worth watching. Journey to Babel. This feat, Mark Leonard, who played the Romulan in season 1, comes back as Spock's dad, Sarek, in this one. He meets Spock's dad and mom, Amanda. He's Sarek's an ambassador, and there's all these different. This is interesting because they have a bunch of different species from the Star Trek universe, including the Andorians. I don't know if they have Andorians anywhere else, but the Andorians are very strikingly blue, and they have big antlers or big antenna. They're very interesting looking, and it's kind of it's an okay episode. I don't think it's that great. There's a little bit of a murder mystery in it too, and it's and the kind of the answer is kind of like only because it's a science fiction show and get away with it. It would have been Get Smart. He would Kirk would have said that's the second time that's happened this week, but because it was so outlandish what happened there. So, but it's probably good for one viewing. It's Friday's Child, which is I don't like this one. This is they're like medieval knights, and it's no notable things. Julie Newmar is in this who played Catwoman, so that's probably the notable thing about this episode for me. I didn't think it was very good. And then we have The Deadly Years. I think there's a short-lived science fiction sitcom called Quark, which does kind of like a parody of this episode, where they get sick and they start aging rapidly, and they have to figure out a cure before they die. So I think this wasn't that great, but I think the Quark episode was better than this. If you can find it on YouTube, I don't know, or maybe Tubi might be showing old episodes of Quark. It was a very strange sci-fi sitcom that was made by Buck Henry. The guy did Get Smart, speaking of Get Smart, and they did a similar type of episode, which I think was a parody of this. Obsession is it's a forgettable one for me. I think it involves some type of strange entity that they've encountered together in another ship that they served on. And it's just figuring out. Kirk is determined to hunt down a vampiric entity he failed to destroy in his past. So he served another ship and I guess he killed some of the crew, and he's trying to get it in this one. So I think it's kind of a boring one. That's followed by a very good one called Wolf in the Fall, where it turns out it's very interesting. It turns out that Jack the Ripper was actually some type of alien entity, and it transfers its consciousness into one being into the next. And I think in this case, if I remember correctly, it transfers it to Scotty, and they have to clear Scotty's name that is showing that it's really this entity that is killing people. So I think I enjoyed that episode. That was very good. And then there's a class followed by classic Trouble with Tribbles, which again Harry Mudd was supposed to be in this one as well, but the actor who plays Harry Mudd was not available, so there's another actor who's kind of similar who appears in this instead, and it's not as hammy as the Harry Mudd actor. So it's kind of, if you know that Harry Mudd was supposed to be in it, it's kind of a disappointment. But this is a comedy episode where they're supposed to transport some grain, and they have these little this merchant that was supposed to be Harry Mudd was selling these tribbles, which are these little fur babies here that keep multiplying and they make lots and lots of babies. So they kind of they eat up all the grain and they take up a lot of space because they keep reproducing. So there's that. So this is a funny one and it's a cute episode, very enjoyable and a classic. Probably number 3, my favorite. Probably if I would do a favorite after. So it would be Sitting on the Edge of Forever, I'm Mudd, and this episode would be number 3, I think. Favorite episodes. This is followed by the Gangsters of Triskelion, which was well known when that was. They aired this a lot on Channel 11. This one would always be on. I saw this one like a million times on Channel 11. It's not that great. I mean, maybe it's good for one viewing, but it's not that great. There's a funny meme that was on the I saw it on Facebook or somewhere on the internet. Where it was this very photo, and Captain Kirk's saying, "I have a sudden craving for baked potatoes," because I guess he's referring to her top there. So I thought that was funny anyway. But I think the episode is passable. Not really. And this is a piece followed by a piece of the action, which is I guess makes fun of. I don't want to make fun of, but is a tribute to gangster movies and Al Capone. It's so apparently this book, the Gangsters of Chicago, gets left on this planet, and these very impressionable aliens that kind of make it their Bible. So they all behave like mobsters, and Captain Kirk and crew have to figure out how to navigate their mob, their gang style. So Kirk and the crew have to figure out how to navigate this mob ruled world. At least they didn't make they have those real last names. At least they didn't make them Italian. Thank goodness. So there's alien names, and they have to, even though they behave like gangsters. So I'm just glad about that. That's followed by immunity syndrome. Basically, the Enterprise gets stuck in this giant amoeba-like entity, and they have to figure a way out. And it's okay. It's good for one viewing. Maybe it's not the greatest. So immunity syndrome is followed by Private Little War, which is again this one aired a lot on Channel 11, and this involves like some type of woman who's like a shaman, and she kind of like puts Kirk under her spell, and it's just a lot of back and forth between two primitive tribes, and I guess some of them have been supplied weapons by the Klingons or something like that, and it's not that great an episode. I'm showing that show on Channel 11 all the time. There's a Return to Tomorrow, which is another episode featuring Sargon, and he takes possession of Captain Kirk at some entity, and they have to figure a way around it. So Return to Tomorrow is Return to Tomorrow. You could probably skip that one. His Patterns of Force, which is okay, but it's about a starship captain that lands on a planet, and he has to. And he figures he'll help them out by using Nazi Germany as a template for their society. And of course, that doesn't work out the greatest. So Kirk and crew have to straighten things out. It's interesting to see them with their shirts off, and you see they're being lashed, and they have crazy red marks on Kirk, and they were smart enough to put, I don't know if you see it here, but they put green marks on Spock, because Spock is supposed to have green copper-based blood. So that's why they were smart enough to do that, even though a lot of times Spock doesn't look that green. His orifice tissue probably should be, his lips and orifice tissue probably should be green too, but they're not. By any other name, this is I forget the name of these beings. He has some beings from the Andromeda Galaxy, and they want to take over the Enterprise. It's okay episode. And then Mary Gloria finds a confusing episode where they get stuck on another similar. It's a parallel world, I think, this time, and this starship captain gets stuck there, and he interferes with them, violates the Prime Directive, and there's a plague that killed all of his crew, but they realize that if they stay on the planet long enough, they build up immunity to it, something that prevents them from dying, and so they can actually go back to the ship once they've stayed on the planet long enough. So it's kind of like traps in there temporarily, but they have to straighten it out with this guy. It's a weird episode. I don't particularly care for it, but you want to see it as a curiosity. Then there's the Ultimate Computer, which is very relevant for today because is Dr. Daystrom, and his name is referenced a lot in in Next Generation. There's a Daystrom Institute where they do a lot of robotics and artificial intelligence research. And Ultimate Computer basically they're gonna do what Elon Musk wants to do with taxi drivers, replace the Starship crew with a computer, and or at least had it run and pilot the starship, and the crew can just sit back and relax. But of course, Kirk feels like it makes him obsolete, and there's a whole bunch of problems, and then the computer goes, the M5 computer there goes nuts and decides to destroy the starship for real, kind of like those Teslas that run over people. So very relevant for today, I think. And the Spread Circuses, this one is very It says this is a parallel planet where the Roman Empire never formed and never fell. There's still too much of that. And the gangsters, and then the Nazis, and then now this is the Roman Empire. Still too much of that this season. And there's a good old days before. They had a parallel universe episode, Mirror Mirror. These weren't parallel universes. These were just worlds. This one I think just evolved through Hotchkiss' law of parallel planets, which they mention here, and evolved like a Roman Empire type empire that evolved, and they never. And it's like it's the 20th century, but it's still the Roman Empire is running everything. So it was a strange episode. I don't find it that entertaining. And then it's followed by the last episode with the assignment Earth. And this one features Gary 7, a human that was raised by aliens and then brought back to 20th century Earth. And then they use that method that they used in season 1, where they to go back in time, and they come to 20th century Earth, and they encounter Gary 7, who again was a human abducted by aliens and then trained and then given kind of like special powers to help Earth, help humans not destroy themselves. So I think that they're in this episode they're trying to prevent World War III nuclear missile crisis. So it was sort of an interesting episode. They had. So Gary 7 carries this little like sonic screwdriver type device called the servo, and it can knock people out, pick locks and things like that. It's kind of like all-purpose, like a non-violent tool there to help him on his mission. And it has another notable thing is that Terry Garr was an actress who gained some notoriety in the 70s and 80s. Is in one of her early roles here as Miss Lincoln, Gary 7's secretary. And this was a backdoor pilot. It looked like Star Trek was going to get canceled, and it pretty much was canceled. But they did a letter writing campaign, which got them to season 3, which I'll cover next time. So this overall is a pretty good season. I think you can watch most of this. But, some are bad, some episodes are better than others. Hope that was helpful. And hope you like this video and subscribe to my channel. It'll be very helpful. All right, thanks.
Spaceman Matt's Sci-Fi blog. Please subscribe so he can't quit.